A little over 20 years ago, GM introduced a more mainstream civilian version of the AM General Hummer vehicle known as the H2. If you guys remember, that H2 was built off of the GMC, Yukon, and Chevrolet Tahoe architecture, but with its unique brawny styling, impressive off-road capability, and powerful yet thirsty V8, it certainly lived up to the image that is portrayed with the Hummer badge. Now, of course, a couple years ago, GM decided to bring back the Hummer nameplate under the GMC brand, first introducing a pickup truck with a massive battery pack. It was also built on the excellent Ultium architecture, offering up to 1,000 horsepower and around 330 miles of range. Now for 2024, the family is expanding with the SUV version, and it's basically known as the GMC Hummer EV SUV in this 2X or this 3X configuration that I'm showing you here. It has the same basic specs as the impressive pickup truck, which means we have a massive battery pack, up to 830 horsepower and up to 314 miles of range on this particular model here. So for those of you who are looking for the ultimate EV that doesn't look like an EV, that also gives you the off-road capability and presence that you want from the Hummer brand, how does the newest version of the Hummer family stack up? Stay tuned to find out. So now that we have the SUV version of the reincarnated GMC Hummer EV, let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling. Because first of all, how could you not notice this vehicle as it goes down the road? In fact, if this car shows up in your rearview mirror, it's probably going to make a lot of people feel a little intimidated because how wide it is, because how brawny it is, because how in your face it is. I actually think GMC did a phenomenal job with the exterior design. It's instantly recognizable as a Hummer, especially when you look at the 7-slot style grille, although technically it's not a grille. Instead, it has a modern LED light bar where it actually will spell out the Hummer badge. Within the actual LEDs, you can see this area here also functions as like a charge indicator. When the vehicle is plugged in, it actually will add LEDs and kind of flash and light up to kind of let you know where the status is. What's interesting about this design, however, are the headlights, which are actually located down here in the lower bumper. Some of you may think those are the fog lights, and the upper portion is the headlight. Don't be mistaken by that. I also love the way the turn signals look. You can see they are a full LED sequential style, and the LED daytime running lights are essentially the top portion that pairs nicely with the headlights there. You can see there is a very subtle GMC badge here to let everybody know that Hummer is no longer its own standalone brand. They are under the GMC umbrella. And then you can see these front tow hooks are just incredibly beefy. You can also get them painted in bronze or red. And then down here underneath this area, there's a massive amount of skid plates. This vehicle in its normal mode offers around 10.2 inches of ground clearance. Now, this being an electric vehicle, the million-dollar question is how big is the frunk, or does it have a frunk? And this is where the Hummer SUV lives up to the same kind of pluses that you get with the pickup truck, because you get a massive frunk here. It's power operated. GMC says you have around 11.3 cubic feet of storage space under here, which, as you can see, there's actually these little bags in here, 4 of them, and because that's where you can put the Freedom panels if you want to take off the roof. It'll essentially give you a full open air experience when you remove the eye-bars. This is also the level 1 charger. We can also get a level 2 dual mode function charger for an extra $300 from the dealership, I believe. There's this area here is completely sealed off. There's an LED light. There's also a button here and a 12-volt power outlet, but no USB ports. That's something that some competitors like the Lightning offers. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. Now, this model that I'm showing you is the 3X. There's also a 2X, which means it has dual electric motors, one at the front and one at the rear. The 3X has 3 electric motors. So there's 2 electric motors at the rear, one at each individual wheel, and then one at the front, giving this thing a maximum of 830 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. GMC on their website likes to say it has 11,400 pound-feet of torque. However, that is the torque at the wheels. It's like multiplied by something else, so it's not necessarily the true torque. The torque at the actual electric motors is 1,200 pound-feet of torque, which is the same as the pickup truck. It all goes out through a single-speed reduction gear transmission, and it draws its power from a 170 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. So it's slightly smaller versus the 212 kilowatt-hour battery pack that you find in the pickup truck. However, with the watts to freedom mode activated, that's the launch control, you only get that on the triple motor versions. This vehicle, GMC claims, will get to 60 in around 3.5 seconds. It has a top speed of around 112 miles an hour, which you'll hit that speed pretty quickly. considering how fast this car is. And this vehicle will also do around 314 miles of range. There's an off-road package that you can add for 10,000 bucks. That'll reduce the range to around 298. It's still pretty good, but remember, this is a large battery pack, so it's still grossly inefficient, so it lives up to the Hummer name of being inefficient. This vehicle is a Hummer, so it can still tow a maximum of 7,500 pounds. And as this car sits, it's not quite as heavy as the pickup truck, and that's because the battery pack is smaller, but still at around 8,700 pounds, it's certainly no lightweight. But remember, the pickup truck is almost 9,500 to 9,600 pounds, so it's almost 1,000 pounds heavier versus the SUV. But let's go ahead and close up this hood here and go back to talking about the exterior styling. Now, I already mentioned the front of the vehicle. Let's go ahead and move around the side profile. This model here that I'm showing you is painted in a very, very light blue called the Tide Metallic. It certainly is a really nice blue. It's nice to see this car in another color besides white, because that's all they were showing with the launch edition on the pickup truck. Now, you can see moving around the side profile, this vehicle is still huge. In fact, compared to the pickup truck, it's around 20 inches shorter with an overall length of 196.7 inches long. That's without the rear tire on the back. Add that rear tire in and it's 206.7 inches, so it adds an extra 10 inches. Its wheelbase is 127 inches long. It's around 9 inches shorter than the pickup trucks, but compared to the original H2, this vehicle is around 7 inches longer. It has a 4-inch longer wheelbase. It's also 5 inches wider. Remember, it's 86.5 inches wide. It's a grossly wide vehicle that takes up the entire lane, and it's around 78 inches tall. Now, looking at the wheels, these are the standard 22-inch wheels that you get with the 3X. They've got like a premium finish on it. You can see for a vehicle this heavy, it has an 8-lug system, which is absolutely insane that it has that many lugs. The brake rotors, I believe, are 14.5 inches front and rear. It's going to need all those brakes to slow this car down, considering how heavy it is. And you can see even on 22s, it's riding on a 305 by 55 R22 Goodyear Wrangler all-terrain tire. Now, there is an 18-inch wheel that you can get with the off-road package, and you can also get a black wheel or a bronze wheel. So that's, so many different options to choose from. This vehicle has an all-independent air suspension. Now, in this mode here in normal, it's giving you around 10.2 inches of ground clearance. If you lift it all the way up into the extract mode, it'll offer around another 6 inches, up to 16 inches of ground clearance. There's also an access mode, which will lower it another 3 inches. That mode is essentially what you're going to have to do, put it in to get the actual full launch. Now, you can see over here, the wheel arch trim is painted in a gloss black. There's a Hummer EV badge over here, along with these really nice beefy step rails, which is necessary to get into this vehicle. You can see this is the little badge to show that you have the 3X trim level with the 3 electric motors. These mirrors are power folding. No integrated turn signal, however, on the mirror. You also have cameras throughout, and then you can see the black roof. Looks pretty nice with this Tide Metallic. These Freedom panels here are standard. These are the opaque Freedom panels. You can also get for 1,500 bucks a transparent one. All 4 of them, again, they do pop off, and they do store in those bags in the trunk, or in the front trunk, which is nice. And then looking at the side profile here, you can see this is where the vehicle seriously looks like a modern reincarnation of the H2, which I think is actually a pretty good thing. This car definitely stands out. It has a very, in-your-face design. People instantly recognize it as a Hummer. It really stands out and gets a lot of attention everywhere you take it. Unlike the pickup truck, which is optional with a full-size spare, you get that here on the SUV. You can see it's a full-size matching wheel as well. It looks really good on the back. I would probably get like a cover to go over that. You can see the taillights. They're a full LED with LED turn signals, LED brake lights, LED reverse lights. And then down here you can see there's also another beefy tow hook, which is nice. This vehicle will tow up to 7,500 pounds, like I said. And you can see underneath here that rear air suspension allows you to basically raise and lower the vehicle with the push of a button, which is nice. That rear window also rolls down, which is a nice touch, although I'm surprised there's no rear window wiper back here. And then if you want to access the cargo area, you actually push this little button right here below the tail light. That actually power opens the tailgate itself. You can see it's a side swinging barn door style tailgate. And I will say that this tailgate does get in the way. You have to be careful when you're opening it that it's not going to smack into another vehicle or smack into your garage door, for example. It does have sensors, but really it only will stop itself when it feels resistance, which I guess the spare tire will hit that first. But once you kind of get back here, you can see the load floor is extremely high. You can lower the suspension if you guys would like. There's a looks like an actual 120 volt power outlet here. There's buttons here to lower down the seats. And if you lift this area up, there's also a little more underfloor storage over here, although it's not quite as deep as I would like. GMC says there's around 36 cubic feet of storage space. There's no third row available. That's something that the H2 offered. If you fold down the second row seats, which I guess I can do real quick, just push that button. You can see that folds down the seats and expands the cargo to around 83 cubic feet of space. 83 is actually a pretty good amount, although again, for a vehicle this large, it could be a little bit more, but I do appreciate the boxy shape. You just have to get over the fact that the load floor is very high, but would you expect you're driving around on a vehicle that has up to 16 inches of ground clearance? So moving on to the interior of the GMC Hummer EV SUV. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the current intelligent access key that a lot of GM vehicles use. You can see it has the GMC badge here, but it also has a unique Hummer EV badge there. The key itself feels relatively nice. It has usual buttons here for lock, unlock, remote start, and you can also open up the swing gate, and there's a unique button here to open up the front trunk along with the panic function. All Hummer EVs come standard with their intelligent access key. It also includes a function where it has a walk-away auto lock feature. So whenever I shut the door and I walk away, the vehicle will honk, or you can turn off the honk and it'll lock the doors automatically. The door handle itself, unlike most EVs where they have like those weird pop-out power actuated door handles, these are very traditional. When you touch that door handle there, that'll also lock the door. The mirrors will power fold in. When you want to unlock the door, however, there's no sensor on the back of the handle. You have to touch the button again, and that's what unlocks the door for you. Now, my particular test car has the Lunar Horizon faux leather interior with the bronze accents. You can see the annoying GM bong is still ever present there. That's because I left the headlights on. Turn that off, and you can see that it goes away. The Lunar Horizon basically comes with a two-tone look. So the upper portion has like a light gray, along with the combination of the black. There's like a Hummer badge over here with the satin bronze accents. This is a fake leather material, like I mentioned earlier. And I have to say, it feels really cheap and scratchy, so I don't love the way the seats feel in terms of the material, but at least the padding is really nice. I found the seats to be comfortable once you kind of got past the scratchy material. These seats are also heated and ventilated. You have a 12-way power adjustment for the driver's side, and you also have two-person memory over here. The passenger side, I believe, gets a 10-way power adjustment. Now, in terms of the door panel materials, you can see, you'll never forget it's a Hummer from the Hummer badging over here, of course, along with the Hummer badge over there. It's got some soft materials over here with the same scratchy material from the seats with the stitching, of course. I love the Lunar Horizon gray over here, a silver accented door handle, bronze accents here. This is the door handle pull to close the door. The window controls, they're one touch for all four just to go down. If you want to go up, they are not one touch, which I find to be annoying considering the price tag of this vehicle. At least the switchgear feels okay. Down here, it's all hard touch plastic. You get the upgraded Bose stereo here, which sounds pretty decent. If you guys are an audiophile, there's a little bit of storage here. But as you can see, the interior certainly looks like it's a carbon copy of the pickup truck. Now, as I get in, there's a nice little handle here to kind of hoist myself up because, again, I am pretty short. And then once you're in here, you can see it's still pretty much the same as the truck. I am noticing the satin bronze carries over here on the vents, which is nice. There is a little bit of a fitment panel gap issue that I saw there, which I don't particularly love. But as I shut the door has a somewhat tinny sound when it shuts, so that doesn't make a great first impression of quality. Now, in terms of the infotainment system, you can see it shows you a really cool graphic in the instrument panel and in the center display. When you want to turn the vehicle on, the start-stop button is right here. Once you hit that, you can see the Super Cruise status bar light glows. You have an all-digital, I believe that's a 12.3-inch cluster for the instrument panel. It shows a lot of topography from a mountain ridge. It also will give you graphics from the moon. There's a unique steering wheel as well with the Hummer EV badge here with more of the satin bronze accents. These wheels, the steering wheel is a power tilt and telescoping, which includes a paddle here for maximum regen braking. There's also your Super Cruise buttons here, your audio controls, which are also located on the back of the steering wheel. The horn, it sounds pretty much how I'd expect for a vehicle of this size and caliber. So it says get out of my way if the styling didn't do so already. And then in terms of the screen here, it's a 13.4-inch screen with Google built in. At least it still has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is nice. The other EV GM vehicles have been doing away with that. In terms of the dash materials, it's all hard touch plastic on the upper portion here with a little bit of a scratchy feel. No heads-up display. That's just a little indicator. If you're going to crash into somebody, it'll flash like a yellow or a red light at you to let you know you're going to crash into somebody. But this screen here, I've shown you guys a video on it before. You can see it includes a full 360 camera. There's also multiple views you can also access by tapping these little buttons here. There's also a trailer view. If you guys go for the off-road package, it also includes some under camera views. There's also an off-road pages app here, which shows you, different information that you might want to know about when you're off-roading. You can also set the air down mode for the tires. If you guys are going to drive in like deep sand, you can also see like little graphics here, which is kind of cool. It shows you your wheel articulation, your pitch and your roll. That's all really cool stuff when you're actually doing some off-roading. Which is nice. The GPS is Google built in, which as you can see when I tap that, it takes a second for it to load, but it also will route you to your local chargers or to chargers along your route if you guys are doing a road trip, which is nice. You can see if I tap that, it'll show you your charging stations that are nearby, which is also a nice feature. The fact that it's Google built in is fantastic. It also has Google Assistant, which is nice. Going to the home display here, you can see this is pretty much what you expected. Like I said earlier, it's a 13.4 inch screen. There's a little bit of a display over here where you can access your heated and cooled seats. But what I don't love is this area is not a touch. You actually have to hit the button here. So you basically tap that. It brings you either another sub menu, and you have to either hit cooled or ventilated seats, which takes a little bit of getting used to. Your auto climate control is over here. You've got dual zone climate control. You have your heated steering wheel over here. Stability control off switch, which if you double tap that, that's where you access the watts to freedom. So basically when the vehicle is in drive, you basically just double tap that, it'll vibrate the seat. It'll ask you if you want to actually lower the vehicle, or you can tell it to cancel. And you guys saw it also showed you basically like you're driving on the moon. Your drive mode selector, like I showed you there, has a really cool video game graphic. You can see there's several different modes: terrain, there's a tow haul, there's a normal, there's a my mode, and then there's an off-road mode. Most of you are going to drive it in the my mode or the normal mode. Obviously, I appreciate the fact that there are traditional air vents here with the traditional adjustability. Your trailer brake controller is over here. You have a big wireless phone charging pad, but as you can see, these plastics, I just don't love the way they feel. They feel very much GM cheap. So it lives up to the Hummer H2 in terms of the material quality, and build quality, again, could be much better. This area here at least feels relatively sturdy. It doesn't move around. There's also some good storage underneath here. Your gear selector is here. If I push this trigger and push it forward, it goes into reverse. There's the 360 camera, obviously. Kick it back to go into drive. Push that P button to go to park. Your air suspension button is accessed via here if you want to raise and lower it. This is where you can access the crab walk feature, or you can also turn on and off the rear steering and put it in auto. If I push and hold it, it actually will activate the crab walk, which also gives you a graphic here, which is kind of cool. It basically allows the vehicle to kind of it basically allows the rear wheels to turn in the same direction as the front wheels. It also gives you a little camera there so you can kind of see what the rear wheels are doing. And it, is a really cool party trick. It's standard equipment on all versions of the SUV, which is kind of nice. And if you push that button here, your mode, your mission. I'm not really entirely sure what that does, but that's something that I imagine is for owners if you guys want to access that. Now, cup holders are right here. You have a center console that is relatively nice padded, but again, it has that same cheap material here and more cheap materials over there, but at least this one here is a non-slip. Open this up, you can see the center console is actually pretty big. There's actually 2 levels of storage. There's an LED light in there, which is nice, but again, I don't love the way that plastic looks there. It just could have been a nicer material throughout. At least the seats are comfortable, like I said earlier, but this little plastic area here can dig into my backside, so kind of try that out to make sure it's okay with you if you guys are interested in buying this vehicle. The glove compartment, you can see, is damped but not lined with felt. It's a bin style. It's not the biggest glove compartment. You can see the digital camera rearview mirror is standard, which is good because the view out of the back without it isn't great, with the spare tire getting in the way. And then these freedom panels, you basically just have to open that latch there and then open this latch here and literally just push this out, and that's what takes the freedom panel off. So it's pretty easy to open and close it. It's not the heaviest, it's just really bulky and cumbersome, but like I said, it fits underneath the front trunk. But overall, the interior is not luxurious. It certainly is very techy. It feels pretty much like a modern incarnation of the H2. Good visibility as well through the front area. It's very spacious, of course, but overall, if you're looking for luxury, you may want to look a little bit elsewhere. Now, hopping into the back seat area, let's go ahead and check that out, because the SUV offers pretty much the same amount of space as the pickup truck. Now, you get around 39 inches of legroom back here, which is pretty good. You can see the floor is completely flat. These seats, they do fold down. If you guys want to fold them down, it creates an almost flat load floor. And these seats, they also recline a little bit, as you can see, which is a nice touch to give you a little bit more comfort. I also love how the Lunar Horizon two-tone carries over back here. You have the same material quality with the soft touch materials here with the stitching, but again, the scratchiness, bronze accents down here. You can see a little bit of storage. There's also a grab handle here or here to help you get into this vehicle. And as you can see, once I climb myself back here and show you guys the space. Now, this is pretty much where I have the seat to drive. You can see there's plenty of room for me to stretch out, completely flat floor, and because the vehicle is so darn wide, you can easily fit 3 wide Americans back here in comfort relatively well. You do have some features back here. You can see there's 3 level heated seats. There's triple zone climate control, so the rear has its own unique zone. You have 2 USB charging ports, a C and an A. You have rear seat air vents, a little bit more storage over here, which is nice. If you want to fold this down, you can see there's an armrest with 2 cup holders. These freedom panels also come off, and this I-bar here also comes off, but you have to use a tool. It looks like an Allen wrench to take that off. In terms of the headroom space, you can see it's pretty good actually. So, you know, when you have all the panels off, it can kind of feel like a Jeep in this vehicle, which is great. But overall, if you plan to use this as a family vehicle, the Hummer SUV can certainly suffice. But just remember, no third row if you guys are coming from an H2, which is kind of fine by me because this is going to give you plenty of space to seat up to 5 people with all their stuff. So it's been a little over a year since I showed you guys a full review on the pickup truck version of the reincarnated GMC Hummer EV, and now we're finally getting a chance to drive the SUV. And I have to say, guys, the SUV has pretty much the same crazy specs, although it doesn't offer the full 1,000 horsepower. Instead, we get 830 when you go for this 3X trim level that I'm showing you, and it also includes the watts to freedom launch control. Now, GMC claims that this model, when you have the watts to freedom launch control activated, can sprint to 60 in just 3.5 seconds. I got 3.37 seconds in the pickup truck when I did that. Remember, this is still a vehicle that weighs nearly over 9,000 pounds, or almost 9,000 pounds, and it also has these all-terrain tires, although this one is sitting on 22-inch wheels. Now, when you want to activate the watts to freedom launch control, you have to basically have the vehicle in drive. You have to double tap the stability control button twice, which once you do that, it actually will give you a little bit of a graphic there. It'll start vibrating my seat. It'll start lowering the vehicle as well. And once the vehicle is lowered, it lowers about 2 to 3 inches, if I remember correctly. It also shows you a little graphic of the car on the moon. That's where it allows you to basically engage the full power, because without it, it's not going to give you the full launch control. So you have to remember, you have to have it in this watts to freedom mode. It has to be lowered because when it lowers itself, it allows the vehicle's suspension to basically give you full power. Now, you can access the watts to freedom and then drive away in the watts to freedom before you are ready to launch it. It actually will show you stand by there, because it does take a good like 20 to 30 seconds if you're going to do it. So it's not something you could really do at stoplights, although once you kind of activate it, it'll stand by. I don't know how long it'll stand by for, but let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise, because I am very curious. We are starting out at a full charge here. The vehicle is showing 339 miles of range. I'll talk about the actual range later on during the driving scene. So once we come to a stop here, it basically tells you to have the wheel straight, brake harder, floor it. Oh, holy smokes! 3.4 seconds there. Wow, that's actually basically as fast as the pickup truck. And remember, that's because the pickup truck the pickup truck has a little bit more power, but it's also around 600 pounds heavier. And also, you guys heard, it will literally burn out the all 4 wheels, because again, this is still an all-terrain tired vehicle on 22-inch wheels. It's just awesome. It literally gives you the tunnel vision that I was expecting it to give me, pretty much. And 3.4 seconds, while it's not the quickest accelerating pickup truck I've ever tested, or SUV I've ever tested, it's still pretty darn fast, which is really, really impressive. Now, I want to just try flooring it here while in watts to freedom, although this time I'm not going to engage the launch control. We're just going to floor it. A little bit less drama there, 4.18 seconds. That's with it more going slightly uphill. So if you don't actually brake torque it and launch it, you lose about almost a second, about 0.8 seconds 0 to 60 wise, but still, that is unbelievably quick. Certainly nothing that a vehicle that weighs, nearly 9,000 pounds should be able to accelerate with this much urgency. But I have to say, with it in this low mode, it definitely feels a lot sportier than the pickup truck that I last tested. Obviously, it's sitting down in its most hunkered stance. If I want to get it out of this mode, you basically just double tap the stability control again, and that'll take it out of the watts to freedom mode. It'll basically go into the normal or the my mode, the vehicle will start to raise itself back up. The sound that it was making, the fake sound, goes away as well. And I have to say, this thing drives pretty much as you would expect a Hummer to drive. It's insanely wide, 86.5 inches wide, which means it's 5 inches wider than the Hummer H2 from a little over a decade ago. And you basically need to take up the entire lane. So if you guys live in a rural or an urban area, you're not going to enjoy driving this vehicle, although the four-wheel steering definitely helps. The handling dynamics of this vehicle, obviously, when you have something that weighs this much with these all-terrain tires, you're not going to be, driving around attacking your favorite back road and corner, but the GMC Hummer SUV can certainly handle its own. You can see it's very, very foggy outside right now, but I feel like I'm basically piloting around in a vehicle that's a tank. I mean, holy crap, this is some pretty thick soup here, guys. It's kind of insane how thick this fog is. I don't think I've ever filmed in something like this, but put my foot down here. Every time you put your foot down, you literally can feel the front end rise up, and it almost feels like it continuously keeps rising until you feel like you're ready to blast off into outer space. It's absolutely bonkers how crazy this thing feels. And what also is kind of nerve-wracking is when you put your foot down, the front tires start to lift and you feel like the steering feel gets further and further away because there's less grip on the front tires. You're kind of fighting to keep the SUV straight. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. It feels pretty slow, or not slow, a little alarming at times. Let's just try flooring it here. This time we won't have it in launch mode. Oh, holy smokes. 4.5 seconds there. So as you guys saw, when you have it in launch mode, it'll basically do it in a second, 1.2 seconds faster when you have it in the watts to freedom mode. And if you don't launch it, it'll do it in around 4.2 seconds. But still, 4.5 in just everyday driving is still plenty fast. And that's because it's not unleashing the full 830 horsepower. We also have 1,200 foot-pounds of torque, which is just insane. But enough about the acceleration. Obviously, the GMC Hummer SUV is basically as fast as the pickup truck. In terms of the ride quality, this thing definitely rides on the softer side, but at the same time, I don't love these freedom panels. Now, my Tesla doesn't have the transparent option for it for an extra $1,500. It's got the opaque ones, which means they're just gloss black. They aren't see-through. And there are times when I was going over bumps, I noticed this thing had a fair amount of flex and creaks that you heard. And that's a really annoying sound for a vehicle that has a six-figure price tag. Overall visibility, however, is about what you'd expect. You can see out of the front really nicely, out of the side pretty good as well. The view out of the back is great with that digital camera rearview mirror. Take it off, however, and you have the spare tire kind of blocking your view and a really relatively small rear window. But it's not horrible. These seats basically feel like they're designed for somebody of very wide frame. They don't hold you in place at all. But the fake leather material, it feels a little scratchy and cheap, but at least the padding is nice and soft, which I appreciate. I can pretty much get a relatively good, comfortable driving position. This vehicle also comes standard with the GMC Super Cruise functionality, and I had a chance to use it out on the highway. It's not the best out on the highway, and that's because this truck basically has a tendency to wander around, so the Super Cruise system is fighting to keep it going straight, which I think is kind of annoying. But it is nice that GMC offers it as standard, and I think it's free for 3 years, or it's included for 3 years, or maybe it's 4 years, I can't remember off the top of my head. Quietness, this is an electric vehicle, so it is very, very quiet, aside from the tire noise that you're hearing from the all-terrain tires. It's something you kind of have to get used to, but once you kind of get used to that sound and some occasional squeaks and rattles from the transparent, or from the freedom panels here, it is not a horribly loud vehicle, although it's just a little tiresome to drive on longer trips. So if you plan to do a bunch of highway driving, this is, more comfortable than a Jeep Wrangler, but I'd say it's less comfortable than a Ford Bronco because of how wide it is, how heavy it is. The suspension just kind of wallows about. When you start turning the wheel, the steering doesn't offer much feedback or precision. And instead you're just met with a bunch of weight shifting around and the feeling that you're piloting around literally a tank or a school bus or something like that. Now, in terms of the range, this vehicle on a full charge was showing just under 340 miles of range in my actual real-world testing. I had a chance to drive this thing in multiple levels of city and highway driving. And the highway, the actual range that I got in my real-world testing in pretty favorable conditions in the 60 to 70 degree temps was around 260 miles, which isn't great. It's because this thing has the aerodynamic efficiency of a brick. Literally, it's been averaging 1.3 miles per kilowatt. In contrast, you could buy something like a Mustang Mach-E or an ID4, and it'll average between 3 to 3.5 miles per kilowatt. So this has half the efficiency. So it lives up to the Hummer name of being grossly inefficient, even though it's an EV. In the city, I was able to do a little bit better because of the regen braking, which, by the way, the regen braking in this car can actually bring it down to a full stop. This is on the normal level. On the high level, it's actually too much regen. You want it on though because this vehicle is so big and heavy that the brakes can get a little overwhelmed at times, especially if you're constantly launching the vehicle. But in terms of the city driving in the range, I was getting around 280 miles. So a little bit better. This is rated to get around 320, if I remember correctly, from the EPA. Or 314, I'm sorry. And that's a little bit less than the truck, and that's because the battery is a little bit smaller, 170 kilowatts. This can accept up to 300 kilowatts on a max DC fast charger. But overall, with the four-wheel steering, it definitely helps with the nimbleness factor of this vehicle. It still feels big, heavy, and insanely wide. It's still an absolutely ridiculous vehicle. But hey, if that's something you're looking for and you love, the way the pickup truck was, the SUV is definitely going to give you that SUV practicality because it has a big cargo area and a big back seat. It also gives you, kind of the shape that you're looking for. It's literally feels like the modern day version of the H2, and I actually really love it. It's just, for me, the price of this vehicle is a little bit high because really, if you're looking for a competitor, the Rivian R1S is truly the only competitor, and it starts at a much significantly cheaper price tag versus the Hummer SUV. So after spending a week with this brand new 2025 GMC Hummer EV SUV, I have to say this vehicle essentially lives up to being that modern electric reincarnation of the original Hummer H2. Because just like that Hummer H2, this vehicle is bold, it's brash, it's in your face, and it's just plain ridiculous. However, this now being an EV, it also adds some new things, like it has some impressive technology, it has that trick air suspension, and it's also bloody fast. As you guys saw, 0 to 60 happens in the WTF launch mode in 3.4 seconds. 3.4 seconds for a vehicle that weighs around 5 tons is absolutely terrifying. And as you guys also saw, the brakes on this vehicle, they do stop the truck decently, but if you're going to be constantly launching it and having to stop and slow down, you're going to eventually cook those brakes, which is why you want to leave the regen braking on. At least that's my recommendation. In terms of handling, this thing is surprisingly agile out on the street because of that standard four-wheel steering, but you still have to get used to the fact that it's 86.5 inches wide, so it basically takes up the entire lane. And when you want to park this thing, it's going to trigger some anxiety for those of you who are not the best parkers. Obviously, if you guys need the best off-road capability, you'd want to spend $10,000 and add the extreme off-road package. This is the more street-oriented model that I'm showing you, which I actually kind of appreciate. It still comes with some beefy all-terrain tires, but the 22-inch wheels look nice, this Tide metallic looks good, and it also gets attention everywhere you take it. I actually really like this car a lot more than the pickup truck version. I think the SUV is just better balanced. It certainly lives up to the Hummer name. And aside from the really cheap interior, which also is plagued with the pickup truck, which also kind of reminds me of the H2. It also had a really cheap interior. What you essentially get here is the capability, the design, the speed, the power, the range, but you don't get a luxurious interior. That's not what Hummers are about, but you do get a ton of space on the inside, and I'm actually kind of glad that GMC didn't want to try to fit a small third row in this vehicle because it works, I think, better as a two-row car. Now, if you guys are looking to purchase this vehicle, they are already in GMC showrooms. If you guys remember, the Hummer brand, when it was coming back out, had a super slow rollout. GMC has, I think, fixed some of the teething issues that they had with scale and production. But the sad thing about the GMC Hummer brand is it's gotten very expensive because the pickup truck started at around $96,800. The SUV is actually $2,000 more for the 2X model, which, as you guys know, the 2X has dual electric motors with all-wheel drive, obviously, and around 600-ish horsepower. If you guys want the 3X, it'll cost you an extra $8,100 more. So we're looking at a starting price of around $106,000. With the extra charge for the color and the destination with charge, which, by the way, the destination charge on this vehicle has gotten absolutely ridiculous at around $2,300. You're looking at around $108,000 for my particular test car here. $108,000 is absolutely insane. Keep in mind, if you guys want to add the off-road package, the black package, the sport package, there's a lot of packages and different wheel options that you can get. This vehicle can easily be optioned up to around $130,000, which is just, I know, stupid expensive. And it also means if you purchase this vehicle, it won't qualify for the $7,500 federal tax credit, even though these are built in America. And that's because it's past that $80,000 threshold. However, if you lease one, I have seen some pretty attractive lease deals for as low as around $800 a month for a 36-month lease. That's with like $10,000 down, however. So it's a lot of money down.
but it certainly seems a little bit more affordable if you guys are, in that space to pay that much for a monthly payment. In terms of competitors, really there's only one, the Rivian R1S, which starts at around $75,000. Most of you are gonna go for the R1S with the max pack or with the large battery pack and the performance upgrade. You can easily option up the Rivian, comparably equipped to this vehicle, to be around $100,000 as well. So really, if you want something like this, with the practicality of an SUV, the performance of, or the acceleration of a sports car, but the looks, the brawny looks that you kind of want, because it doesn't look like an EV, the Hummer and the Rivian are really the only players in town. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the Rivian R1S, the updated version, sometime either later this year or early next year. But until then, the Hummer SUV, I think, is definitely the one to get compared to the pickup truck, but just be prepared to pay a pretty penny and also be prepared to drive one of the most inefficient EVs you're gonna get out there, although the range in the real world is certainly still very usable. With all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the brand new 2025 GMC Hummer EV SUV. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.